Hi, I'm Dave, welcome to the channel. Before I turn this oval back into Mundham Park, a little bit of unfinished business to deal with. So here's a fairly big selection of cars, but I was wondering, having run all of those big Revo slots around, what some of the other things would be like to drive around this oval, because there isn't an oval very often, don't get to try it very often. So the obvious thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 8 Group 2 Revo slots and run them all round and get some times like I did for the bigger Revo slots. I'm not going to go through the whole process of each one again. Suffice it to say that I've got 2 Escorts. This one is much newer production than this one. An Alfa and a BMW, they're a bit oddball. 2 completely identical Datsun 510s, and an earlier and a subsequent release of the Opel Kadets. So we'll see how those go. Other things I thought I might try and run. Well, Joe Poly Mini, why not? It's very different to all the other slot cars I've got. A standard Legend, a very modified Legend, Pat's NASCAR, those 2 old classic American muscle cars from Carrera, my Don White's Pioneer Charger, a couple of the next gen NASCARs, one with my tyres on, one with Carrera's tyres on, and just for fun, right at the back, a big old BRM 124 Mark 1 Ford Escort. I think that's a fair selection of cars, quite a cross section, and we'll see how this goes. First of all, I'll show you a few laps of some of these Revo slot Group 2s, not too many, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about which ones are fastest and why I think that is. So, welcome to turn 1 for the results of the Group 2 Revo slot test. Now you'll see I've lined these cars up around here. This is the very start of turn 1, and this is halfway round, just here, 90 degrees from there to there. And these cars are here because, give or take, this is where, having done my braking, I was able to put the throttle back on each of these cars to make it round the corner and make fast laps. Now, for a start, it's very early in the corner, as you can see. These Revo slots on this oval, they seem to love it, as you probably saw from the laps. They're really quite stable. You've got to try quite hard to de-slot them, and they will give you quite a lot of feedback and quite a lot of slide before they want to come out. So if you're paying attention, you shouldn't de-slot them on this sort of oval. Now, the results, last and slowest with 2.609 seconds is the BMW 2002. Now, I have a theory for this. I think this car is the slowest simply because it's really quite top heavy compared with, I don't know, maybe this one. It's a fair bit taller, and they're a little bit narrower than the rest of the Group 2s. As a result, having done my braking at the end of the straight, I could not really put the power on before we got almost halfway round. there was a certain amount of coasting that was going on here, just under power, before I could really pull the trigger and press on and accelerate out of the corner. And I think it's all down to it being really quite top heavy. Now, next slowest actually isn't that one. It's this Mark 1 Escort. Now, this is my first Revo slot, and it is the oldest of all of them. Actually, no, this was my first one. Correction. But this one, I think, was the first one in terms of when these were produced. I think this is the oldest iteration of Group 2 that I've got. And it's done a lot of laps, and it's desperately in need of a service. And although it's on about its 4th set of rear tyres, it really does need another set. So this car was not entirely in optimum condition when I ran it around the track. As a result of that, it wasn't very quick. But I don't think it was very quick simply because these tyres, quite frankly, are a much smaller diameter than all the tyres on all the other ones, which are all relatively new. I've replaced them with less laps on. I just like doing laps with this car. It's kind of old and loose now, and it's fun. Not necessarily, as we've seen, fast and fun. So yes, this one was the next slowest. Next slowest, or quicker than that, was actually the pair of Datsun 510s. I mean, they're identical. It doesn't matter which one I use. These came out of the box. I set the gear mesh and just ran them around. They hang on pretty well around the corners. But again, I think this is a little top heavy compared with some of the others. So at 2.581, which is, 2/100ths faster than the slowest, it was a little surprised, but it is what it is, I guess. Now, moving up, the next two cars are quite interesting because they are essentially the same time, and they are both of the Opel Kadetts. Now, this one, 2.542 seconds. This one, 2.544 seconds. So the same time. But the lap to drive, very, very different. Now, this is the first iteration of an Opel Kadett that they released. And I have to put the power on quite early. And although it's a little tail happy, it likes to pull round the corner like that. This one is more tail happy. And I can only attribute that to the fact that it's got more stuff on the back, and maybe the weight balance is different between this one and this one. But this one I had to brake and then wait longer to feed the power back in. But having fed the power back in, I could feed it in quicker because this car seems to be more planted at the rear at that point. This one I could start the power in earlier, but I had to feed it in more gradually. But interestingly, they produced about the same amount of time. Now, the two that were the quickest are the Alpha and the Wooding Escort. Now, the Wooding Escort, particularly, when it arrived, it's just a good one. It was quiet, it was smooth. I've not really done anything to it. I've managed to lose the tray out the bottom of it by thrashing it about a bit. Actually, the tray came out the bottom of that Escort as well. But yeah, it was just a very refined car from day one. I've not done anything much to it. It just runs really nicely, quite quietly. I'm very happy with it. This is the track beast on Mundham Park for the Group 2s. And it is the track beast on the oval as well, because this car is fastest in both scenarios. And I think the reason for that is that out of all of these Group 2 Revo slots, This has the much wider front than all the others by at least half a tyre width, maybe more. 3-4 millimeters, possibly. Which means this car, when you throw it into a corner, is incredibly stable because it will try and lean down on its front wheels, which are spread further out. It tends not to tip and rock too much. The back will give slightly, and it's got a very strong motor in it. I mean, I know they're all supposed to be the same motor, but I'm sure this one is stronger somehow. So out of all the Revo slots, quite predictable for me. The Track Beast was the quickest, and I think it's because of the wide front track. The smooth one was the second quickest. And the slightly top heavy one was the slowest. Right, let's have a look at some other cars round this oval. So, having run all the cars that I'd suggested, let's have a bit of an analysis of them. Now, the Joe Poly Mini, obviously it's a scale electric Mini, it's massively overgeared. I had to turn it right down to about 9 volts, and you'll see from the footage that it was scrabbling for grip quite a lot, even only at 9 volts. It was a lot of fun. I mean, no magnet, bit of lead added. That was about it really, didn't do much else to it. 3.371 seconds. Now, it's the slowest, but then we expected that. It's a small car, it's got tiny tyres with virtually no grip, and it's a little bit top heavy. Nonetheless, it was okay. So the next thing I ran was Pat's NASCAR. Now you'll recall possibly, this was just a junker really. And I glued the wheels back on, fettled it, tidied it up a little bit, magnet out, changed the guide. Still on the original tyres, which amazingly still have a bit of life in them. So it wasn't the quickest thing in the world. I wasn't expecting it to be. It was very smooth to drive, as you can see from the laps. And quite a lot of fun, easy to control, could get a little bit of slide on it, not too bad, not fast, but excellent fun. 2.950 seconds. And then Don's Charger, not Dom's Charger, Don's Charger, Don White's Charger, the one I built from the Pioneer car. Now, yes, I've done quite a lot of fettling to this. I've lowered it a little, I've done all sorts of things. However, incredibly smooth to drive, really quite quick. 2.735 seconds. I was very, very impressed with this. It was a proper old school NASCAR though. You could definitely drift it out a bit. It was quite controllable. I think with a little bit more tweaking and tuning, if I was going to keep this oval permanently, I could get some good laps out of this. I really do. Then I went for the old classic Dodge Charger street car. And I left the magnet in this. I took the back one out, but I left this magnet in, pushed it right forward. Haven't done anything else to it really. And it skittled around the track quite nicely. The magnet at the front did allow it an amount of additional grip, of course, but because I'd taken the back one out, I could get a little bit of slide, a little bit of drift in the rear wheels. Got around the track. You know, it's a magnet time, so it's going to be quicker. But 2.542 seconds. By comparison, however, this dear old thing the Roadrunner, with its very shonky, not used for very long magnet system and guide system, was atrocious. The spring on these magnets is too strong, and you'll see from the laps that it goes into a corner, and then as it drifts it's pulling itself straight, and it would do it 3 or 4 times round a corner. So that wasn't ideal and made for the slow time. So the next thing I did was the 2 NASCARs. The one with my tyres that I made aftermarket, which are polyurethane 40 short tyres that I was very pleased with. So on this lap, as you can see, very smooth, very considered, nice and easy to control, and quite a nice little time, 2.550 seconds. And here's the tell on this one though. Using the standard Carrera tyres, as I'm sure you can see, they're hard, they don't really grip. They'd make really good front tyres, but they make really terrible back tyres. And this car was nearly impossible to get traction with, so it ended up 3.127 seconds, which is 0.6 of a second slower than a car that made a 2.5 second lap. I mean, that is pretty appalling, Carrera, quite frankly. Make better tyres. You're underselling your cars. I mean, it's silly. Then I went for the Legends. So standard Legend, took the magnet out, drew the tyres up a bit, took the tread off them, that's it. Ran it around the track, it was okay. You can't really push it into the corners because it's so short and square and a little bit squirrely. It was never going to be super stable at high speed, but it got under 3 seconds, 2.967 seconds. And then, of course, my version of a Legend, which has different gearing just to smooth it out and quieten it down. I've lowered it with the staff slots bearings. It's got staff slots wheels, PCS tyres, nice and grippy, changed the guide out, and body dropped it quite a bit. And again, massive, massive difference. This car's incredible on this oval. It really, really is. 2.409 seconds. Fastest out of everything we tested here today. By quite a little bit. And then last but not least, because I'm from Essex, so I like a Mark I Ford Escort. And because it's a big, giant 1/24 scale beast, I ran the BRM. Now this car was really very, very pleasurable to drive. Obviously it's a bigger, heavier car, so I had to turn the brakes up to get it to stop, or at least slow down at the end of the straight enough to make a corner properly. But when I did, could feed the power in really quite smoothly. And this made for a great lap time, really. For a big old beast of a car, heavy, you know, all of those things that it's got against it. 2.620 seconds. As good as, really, this with the fancy tyres on it. So overall, I think that's my unfinished business done. Thank you for sticking with me for an oval track through, well, 4 in total videos now. I've really enjoyed the experience of the oval. I would recommend, if you've got space to set up an oval, not necessarily with such sweeping corners, but with a decent amount of long straights, set one up as a practice. It will improve your driving. Because the lap is rhythmic, you can get to a point where you can pick a point on the lap where you're going to brake and pick a point where you're going to accelerate and do that lap after lap routinely, and then adjust those positions ever so slightly, brake later, accelerate earlier, and close the distance between the braking and the accelerating, the dead space on the lap if you like. Watch the cars move slightly as they go around the corners. It will hone your skills as a driver, especially if you're a Nomad driver. It really will. I'm going to put Munden Park now back at the end of this video, and we'll go back to the old way of doing things, but might bring it out again for say a month next summer. We might have an oval month every year from now on here. What do you think? As always, thanks for taking the time to watch one of my videos. If you liked it, you will find a button specifically for that. Please subscribe to the channel, it's free and it really does help. And if you hit the bell, you'll get a notification the next time I post a video.